just a single being, but visualize this being that just appears as a single being, as an embodiment of all the amazing, inspiring beings in this world, as an embodiment of your Lama, of if you have a Lama, like a Lama who inspires you, your Lama is basically someone who inspires you, someone you find inspiring in terms of what we're learning here. Of all the Buddhas, if you can. It takes a bit of training to do that, but they're representative of all the forces in this universe who represent wisdom, compassion, the way we are learning content. So that makes it a lot more powerful. You're opening yourself, you're opening your mind to receiving the inspiration of all these beings. And so, in a way, of course, like I said, they're like the sun, but we have to step out into the sun. We have to be ready to receive their inspiration. So, this opening ourselves to them, similar to frustrations, right? You're opening yourself. Except here, it's not about the physical action, it's about visualizing these amazing beings in front of you in the form of just one being. So just think there's the Buddha, representative of all these other great beings, and you're opening yourself to their presence. It makes a huge difference. I can't explain you scientifically how it works. There must be a scientific explanation, but nevertheless, receive that blessing or inspiration, if you like, in the form of the Buddha, who is an embodiment of all the powers of this world. And then also have that mind like requesting, in the sense, take a moment and please teach me, please show me how you did it. Like in whichever way you want to formulate it, just kind of like, I'm ready to receive this. So in that way, we open ourselves to all this. But then, of course, we then do the meditation, all sentient beings. I'm doing this not just for myself, I'm doing this for the benefit of myself and everyone else. And that makes it much more powerful. So, from your side, more power is coming. You have the power of all these amazing beings blessing you. And I'll say it again during the meditation. Since we're doing it slightly differently now, want to be sure that you're prepared for visualizing this embodiment of all great powers, of all great qualities. And then, of course, all sentient beings, from your side, this incredible power comes because you're not just doing it for yourself. So you create a special power, for lack of a better word. And then when we recite the prayer, again, I take go for refuge until I'm enlightened. So until I myself have reached this incredible state that you have all reached. Until then, please guide me through your example, through your words, yeah, in whichever way possible, please guide me. So to create that openness to receive from those beings who already attained that state in whichever form, visualized in the form of the Buddha, but of course, that's just a representation of all the other enlightened beings. And then whatever they have to teach, their methods, and of course also those other beings. Right? When you recite refuge, when you recite the refuge, the first two lines, think, focus on those beings, that being in front of you, representative of all other great beings in this the universe. And then, of course, the last two lines enable you to go back to all sentient beings. I'm doing this for them. So you have receiving the power before you or wherever else. First two lines, the last two lines, all sentient beings. So you make it so powerful. The words, of course, are important, but the mind is much more. So you utilize the power of your own mind, receiving and giving, basically. Let's do this. So if you have the prayer in front of you, that's maybe helpful. You don't have to search for the prayer. And then let's do the meditation first. Again, starting with some breathing meditation. And then visualize in the space in front of you, a Buddha, was a manifestation of all the enlightened beings in the universe. So in the form of the Buddha, all realized, all awakened beings are right in front of you. Having achieved the highest mental qualities we can achieve ourselves. Such as limitless compassion, profound wisdom, realizing the ultimate nature of all phenomena is emptiness. So open yourself to their inspiration and their guidance. For whose benefit? The benefit of all sentient beings. For a thing that you're surrounded by all sentient beings. None of them being a stranger. Since all of us at some point have been so extremely close to it. And not just once, limitless times. Not only were they extremely kind to us in the past, they're extremely kind to us even now. Since their mere presence benefits us. well-being, keeps us alive and healthy. And enables us to grow spiritually. So generate affectionate love that feels just as close to all sentient beings as we feel to ourselves. Where their happiness, their well-being, equally to our own happiness. And then take a moment to focus on their incredible suffering. Not just their suffering of suffering, but also their incredibly limited happiness. Suffering change. As well as their pervasive suffering, the fact that they have a very fragile and limited mind and body. And wish from the depth of your heart they may be free from these types of sufferings, together with their causes. And at the same time, also wish for all sentient beings, or wish that you yourself are able to help all sentient beings to overcome these three types of suffering. So may I be able to guide sentient beings in such a way that they're able to eliminate all the suffering and its causes. aspiration then grows stronger. And gives way to the altruistic resolve that is determined to give our best, to help sentient beings who are so kind to us, or are so kind to us, overcome all the suffering and its causes. Since we're quite limited right now, can't really effectively help ourselves. Let's therefore aspire to attain the awakened state of the Buddha. The omniscient, enlightened state of a fully purified being, so that we're effectively expanding the total sentient. So with this mind of bodhicitta, without letting go of it, let's recite the prayer. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly, by the two accumulations created by practicing generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly, by the two accumulations created by practicing generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly, by the two accumulations created by practicing generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. Okay. So hopefully we'll in the most effective way to receive these teachings. Now going back to dependent.
Now, we've reached a point now where we need to start thinking beyond this time we have together and think, whatever I've learned, how can I bring it into my daily life? Okay, this is now the time. We've got 3.5 days left. I don't think I have to translate on the 16th. Nothing seems to move that way. So we can definitely still have that session. I guess it's a morning session we have on the 16th, yes. So we can still definitely have that. So that's 3.5 days basically. And it's important with everything you learn to have that in the back of your mind. How is this relevant to me? Going back wherever I live, going wherever I go, how can I bring this into my life? That is so important, because otherwise it's just some kind of theory that sounds nice, but we'll easily forget. We'll forget very quickly. Whereas if we bring it into our own life, it becomes us. It becomes a part of us. You develop your own version of the Dharma that's most appropriate for your own mind, that suits you best. Now, so far, of course, my meditations, I can only guess what you would possibly find helpful. But it's a bit like someone is feeding you, right? Now you need to chew and allow it for it to digest in such a way that you take the nutritions that you need and get rid of the rest. So similarly here, initially we are spoon-fed. I mean, that's just the way it is. But we need to own it in the sense that it becomes you. You understand it. It's adjusted to your own thoughts. It's adjusted to your own situation, which is just the nature of these techniques. They can be adjusted to life 2,600 years ago and to life in the 21st century. But that's the job you need to do. Yeah? So there's always two sides to it. Of course, there's the side of the Buddha's teachings, and then there's the side of what we do with it. And that time has come to really give it more thought. Now let's look at dependent origination or dependent arising. That's actually a concept that's not that difficult to integrate. It's not difficult to accept the existence of the three types of dependent arising. And therefore, it's also easier to own it in the sense of making it part of yourself, if you choose to do so. If you choose, you think, okay, this is not my thing, fair enough. You gave it a try and didn't work, okay. However, if you do choose, if there's something that you find helpful, well, maybe the story I'm going to tell you now may be helpful. I told you about this female serial killer. And as it happened, this woman, of course, she was imprisoned. And as far as I remember, I don't remember all the details, but they're not important. As far as I remember, she was executed. Or maybe she's still on death row, I don't know. But the thing was, there was a program on the BBC about her that is not about her. It was much more about the person who accompanied her. There was someone, she probably had like some, I don't know, psychological help, I guess, given to her by the US government, I suppose. And she now reported about her. She reported back about her. So as far as I remember, she was interviewed about this woman that people hated so much. I mean, they were so, and of course the reaction was very negative when they found out what she had done. Not surprising. But she first talked about what she had found out about the history of this lady. And I already shared that with you yesterday. I talked about how she had been pretty much tortured as a child, had never really learned to control her mind, to develop the kind of qualities that most people have a chance to develop. Nevertheless, she knew right from wrong because she tried to hide her action. That's usually an implication, like you know it's wrong because you tried to hide that you killed someone. You wouldn't hide it if you thought that was normal. Therefore, she was, of course, punished or disciplined for what she had done. Nevertheless, still to compare her situation with our own, it was pretty... Bye, Deepak. It was pretty obvious. It was pretty obvious that she had a really hard beginning. So she said, this person talked about it, how it was really difficult to hate her. I mean, just thinking, gosh, it softened her heart, and she felt compassionate towards this person. And I guess we can all do that. It makes sense. It's a human response. understanding the causes and conditions. So you see, if you think, okay, if in that situation, just knowing her history, knowing her past, helps me to soften my heart, helps me to generate some compassion, some understanding, some forgiveness even. How about someone I really dislike, I have a really hard time with, and I don't really even want to use words such as hatred, because I don't think we ordinarily hate people all the time, and you know, I mean, we probably be extremely miserable if we did, because hatred is just so painful. But we do dislike people, we resent people, we were hurt by what they've done to us, right? I mean, things happen to us and it's hurtful. And it simmers, it festers, it's painful. And I'm pretty sure all of us have some story to tell. I'm pretty sure. It's hard to believe that there's anyone who says, no one has ever harmed me, ever, ever, ever. And then to take that as our experiment, right? As our way to experiment with it. And just think, what were the causes and conditions? I mean, even if it's just good old ignorance, right? I mean, I don't want to be ignorant, and I'm ignorant so often. Even without, I'm so busy with something else, I'm just ignorant of what's going on around me, unfortunately. You know, I'm thinking, when I was in high school, was I ever a bully? I'm not aware of it, but I could have been. I could have been just ignoring people who maybe sought my friendship, and I just wasn't interested in them. They weren't cool enough or something. So, I mean, often enough, I mean, I had, because I became pretty much soon after I was, after high school, I became a nun. So my full-on life is from childhood to I became a nun. Then things changed because of the Dharma, but I have that memory. And I'm thinking, I so readily accuse others of this, that, and the other. But I'm pretty sure I did that. And when I was a nun, of course, as well. But I was more aware of it, hopefully, than I was before. So thinking back, am I so much better than others? Have I not done this to others as well? In this life, or maybe in a previous life, right? And that kind of helps a little bit already. So the causes and conditions, just thinking of a previous life, like I told you how difficult those first few years were, because I felt so discriminated against. And I was sometimes, and sometimes I wasn't. I just expected it, and I probably wasn't. I was super sensitive. But just that's besides the point. And I told you how beneficial I felt it was. And that's a personal thing. I don't know it's the same for everyone. I could never think karma. In the beginning, no. That was almost like saying it was not their fault. They did everything right. So that went too far. But then slowly I realized that resentment wasn't good for me. It was too painful. It was festering. And so one day when I thought, oh, what could have caused that? And it's not me, I'm not that person. Now, not at all. I'm not the teenager I once was. I'm glad to say I'm not, right? But there's still a connection, there's a continuity, and being a law of nature, so therefore, right, there's a connection. And it really helped me to think, wow, I just was that person. That whatever happened to me, I did to someone else as well. And that was so liberating. I don't know how to put this. I was like, the universe, I put it all back in place. The universe makes sense. Because I've just been treated in that way, and I hadn't done anything. I mean, I've not in this lifetime, I haven't, I don't think. I don't think I've been a misogynist in this lifetime. But suddenly things made sense. And I could move on and say, okay, I better be careful what I do in the future. Because now I could go, all these guys and what they do, and kind of like take on that, the same kind of talk bad about God. I mean, be misogynist with men, for instance. It could happen with anyone else. So, like I said, it was so liberating. It all made sense suddenly. Okay, all right, that's the situation. And hopefully now that karma is exhausted, hopefully, and it got better. So anyway, the universe made sense again, to put it in those terms, right? But even more importantly, also understand the causes and conditions. Even now, when someone treats me in a way that triggers resentment, okay? Take the time, if not in that moment, I'm too busy to be resentful, so I don't really have time to think of the causes and conditions. But first of all, let go of the resentment, if I can. Okay, it'll arise, but then let it go, let it go, let it go. As Shantideva says, become a piece of wood, right? Just, I'm wood, I'm not feeling this. It seems to be a little bit like suppressing it, but it's actually not suppressing. You just pay attention to something else. I'm a piece of wood. And you deal with it when you have the time and the leisure, when you're on your own. Or when you have a moment to not focus on someone or not focus on something, you can just be with your thoughts, even if that means in a crowd of people, and reflect. Okay? So what was it that made that person do that? And there are always causes and conditions. People are not, they're not naturally angry. They're not naturally mean. There could be so much insecurity. Insecurity is so important. That a lot of people, I know, for instance, where I come from, where I was raised, being insecure or even shy was shameful. People felt that way. They felt they had to be assertive. They had to be self-confident. Otherwise, they were seen weak. It's very interesting to watch Tibetan society where actually being shy is seen as a virtue. Seen as a virtue, you know, like a girl being like, it's cute. Where I come from, in my culture, it's seen as a weakness. So if you're naturally shy, and I was, and I am, I'm an introvert. Doesn't seem like that. I talk so much. I talk so much. You only know me talking the whole time. And very animatedly at that as well, because this is not really so much my nature, but I just want to catch your attention, so I do it for that. I guess I picked it up on that, because you told me the other day, like, you imitated me. And I've seen it on recordings. I hate it. I wished I was like straight-faced and would just, but I can't do it. But it's kind of almost like I want to make sure I don't lose anyone. So it's part of it, my expressiveness has to do with that. But I'm a terrible introvert. I'm shy. Too many people and I can't talk. And I tried to hide that as I grew up. I tried to be assertive, but I wasn't. And oftentimes it came across as rudeness. It came across as rudeness because I couldn't just talk to anyone and be friendly. I was too shy. So I chose to ignore them, to hide my shyness. And this is why I knew when my mom, oh God, this is the whole family thing. Okay, my mom was like so upset with my nephew's, her grandson's girlfriend, because she ignored her, right? My mom lives next door to my sister, and my sister's her son, she's studying in England, and when he comes back, he still lives with his mom, and so his girlfriend is there. So they're all together. And she kept complaining, she's so rude, she's so rude. But I knew when I saw her, oh, I knew from experience, that's what she was doing. She was shy. She was just shy. She was pretending she didn't see us. She was pretending, you know, like she said, sometimes she didn't even say hi. So she put on this kind of, and we misunderstood. My mom misunderstood. But, you know, what is it? No one, be one to know one? What's the saying? Pardon? It takes one to know one. It takes one to know one. So I know from my own experience. And then I remember I told my mom, I said, you misunderstand. And then she got to know her and she said, oh, she's so lovely. My mom is 87, she's 20. And they became friends. right? They hung out together because my sister was gone. My nephew is in England. My sister was on vacation, and they became friends. They actually wanted to meet in town to go shopping this Saturday. This Saturday. So it's like, wow, you see? I mean, I don't know whether that's going to hold. I mean, the age gap is a bit big. But the point is, we don't know. We take it personally. We usually believe this person's not talking to us because they don't like us. Because we feel they don't like us. We take it personally. The only interpretation we have is towards ourselves. Why would they not look at us? Because they don't like me. But we don't notice they don't look at anyone else either. But we're so busy with ourselves to notice. Anyway, we only get that perspective. And then usually we start, oh, why? So look how they treat others. Possibly the same, unless they know someone really well. And then their insecurity will be like, oof. And then they spend a lot of time with just that person. And we think, why did I talk to that person and not to me? It's ridiculous. It's because they feel safer with them, because they know them better, right? So we never put ourselves into the other person's shoes. This seems so minor. This is just a short interaction you have, right, with someone. And this is just an example I know from the time when I was a teenager. So your situation may be very different. If you're an extrovert and you're talking to everyone, you need another example, right? I can only provide you with that one from my own experience. And this is just a tiny situation that occurs within the space of 2 minutes, 5 minutes. And still it bothers us. And it may fester, it may feel like. So to look at all sides, not just my perspective, that's just one, but everyone else. See, watch people better. Listen, what are they saying? How are they talking? Get more of a sense, like, become like a bird looking at it from all perspectives and not just me, my perspective. Yeah? Because me, my perspective doesn't give us the full picture, and it usually results in pain. Therefore, put ourselves into the shoes of everyone. Learn to watch, learn to listen better. And we get a fuller picture, and then before long, it no longer feels personal, right? They don't even know me. Why would they be, right? I don't worry about the bus driver who meets me for the first time and is rude. I don't take that personally because I know they saw me for the first time. Or maybe I take even that personal. Maybe. It's like, why did they talk to me like that? To the woman in the back, they're much friendlier. Well, maybe they're a neighbor, or anyway, they're elderly, and so whatever. They're good looking, they're young and beautiful, and they're not going to talk to them like that, and no hair, weird clothes, of course. So the point is, whatever is the reason, it's nothing personal. Usually, people are too busy with themselves than to think of us all the time. There's no time, right? And I do things to others sometimes because I'm so just thinking of myself. I may be really upset about something, and then someone says, excuse me, and I go, what do you want? Because I'm upset with myself. I've had that as well. I'm upset with myself, and I'm just really angry because I reacted that way because I wasn't kind. And someone says, excuse me, and I say, what do you want? Sound familiar? Right? So in that moment, I'm not thinking of the other person. And I come across as rude, and I do exactly what I don't like in others doing it to me. So we need to move beyond our self-centeredness, you see? And it's not about, when we talk about it, it seems like in special situations, every now and then when we meditate. No, in every interaction with others, be mindful. Be mindful. Let it go. I mean mine. Let it go. I've done this since beginning this time and see where it got me. I'm still trapped. It's not working. The self-centered mind is not working. It's not bringing me the happiness. So far, I've gone with the self-centered mind. I've followed its every whim. Whatever it tells me, I'm thinking, okay, if I do this, then they like me. If I do this, then they will. I did all this, and it's not working. We should realize this by now. Even if you don't think of since beginningless time, just in this life. Has it solved all my problems? Has it made things better? No way. Like, no way. It hasn't made it better. So let's try something else. We've lived long enough and we have experienced enough for the time has come now to understand the time has come now to try a different approach, which is moving away from that attachment to I'm and my happiness and look further. Include other sentient beings. Listen. Spend more time listening. Of course, don't stop talking to people. That would be also rude. No. Still, of course, talking. But also watching them with each other. Get a fuller picture of what's going on without just seeing our own perspective. And find out about people. If you resent someone, find out about their past. Hear about their problems. And funnily enough, everyone's got their own portion, their own difficulties. Everyone does. Everyone. Right? There's no one who doesn't have problems. So the people we believe they bully us. I've had my share. When I became a new nun, I felt like people were bullying me. Yeah, I was in a place and I wanted to be kind and friendly. And I was friendly to a monk, and the monk thought I was trying to... That was the last thing on my mind. I was a new nun. But he got upset. He told other people, and they thought I was, wow. And that wasn't my intention at all. But I wasn't going to go around and say I was only friendly to him because I wanted to practice. That went too far. But there was this rumor around, if this rumor started, I was out to be with that. So I had to avoid him now. Try everything and be kind of like... And every time I saw him, I was like, oh no, is everyone watching me? And I don't know that was the case. That was probably just in my mind. But it became a whole thing. I was like totally insecure. And then worst of all, when I joined the IBD, he joined my class as well. He joined the same program, the Western monk. Later on, things got easier. And I was so worried, always about him. Am I doing... So, yeah, it happened, but I should have just let it go. So what they talk about me? It doesn't make me better or worse, right? I was so concerned with my reputation. I should have just let it go, and at some point I did. I was like, whatever, think what you want, I don't care. Sooner or later you'll figure out if I haven't made any further approach or some, like if there really was something from my side, sooner or later I would try more. But I never did that, and anyway, so at some point we became good friends and we both relaxed, and that was the end of it. But yeah, that's the thing. It was really, of course there was something from the other side, but I made a whole story of it. Honestly, I could have reacted differently. In my class, it was also very interesting, because Tibetans, they're tough. They're very laid back, they're gentle, but they're very, very tough. Very tough. I mean, look at Tibet. Tibet is such a hard place to live. So in a way, that external hardship has also hardened them in other ways. Like you're used to cold and discomfort. So even when they get sick, they're not mourning and complaining and, oh, I feel so sick. They may go to the doctor or not, which is not always a good idea if they don't always go, by the way. I'm not saying that's good, but they're really tough. And so, like in particular in the West, I don't know about India, but, and please help me here to understand, we are so obsessed about politically correct and not saying things, like using words and so forth. Actually, that's sweet, but we can become obsessive in that way, right? We always have to change words. I mean, those who were insane in the past, they now become mentally impaired, you can't say. Now you have to say mentally challenged. And 2 years from now, I'm pretty sure there's a new term. Now, the reason for doing that is nice, but from our own side, to believe there's an inherent meaning in every word, that's our problem. So initially the word seems neutral, and then we take, and I'm not saying we should stop being careful about others. We should really follow these rules because people get hurt. I'm not saying that. But our own sensitivities, we need to work with them because they're, I mean, we have an incredible saying. It's like one of those, you know, beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, but we really don't live like that. What is the saying? Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can do no harm. You're right. Really, in actuality, they're just words, right? But we're like so sensitive when someone says something to us. We should still be, of course, like I said, this is not directed with others, you know, with other people. To still be very sensitive to their needs, their wants, because we can't make them change. But we can change ourselves. So what I found, it was so interesting, especially in India, where everyone calls me ma'am. Yeah, sometimes madam and sometimes ma'am. The guy in the bank, he writes ma'am. Ma'am, you forgot something or whatever, right? Ma'am, ma'am, right? So, but I know some who get very offended when they're called ma'am in the West. I'm not that old, don't call me ma'am. I remember one of the Emory programs, she's like 70. I mean, come on, like, when can I call her ma'am? Right? So it's like, no, but I'm not that old, don't call me ma'am. That was so, why, you know, like this thing. So what is so bad with ma'am? It's a short for madam. Madam G, yes, I've also been called Madam G, but ma'am also. So there's that, and then being older, elderly. When will I be old? How long does it take? So if I call myself elderly now, but who cares I'm old? Anyway, the whole point is my classmates, many of them had already studied for many years. As it happened, my classmates, some of them had already studied all this for 7, 8 years, which was great for all of us, but that's besides the point. So it's all about words. So they gave each other's nicknames, and I got one of the worst. I need to explain why I got this nickname. You know, I lived with nuns, and the nuns in the morning, I would just wanted to be like the nuns. So I totally emulated. I just totally, what's the word? Copied them, emulated them, yeah. So they would go in the morning. I was at the Nunnery where they only had a tap. There was no bathroom. There was a kind of makeshift toilet, kind of self-made. So and then there was a tap outside. And everyone would take the soap, you know, the cheapest soap they could get, rub their faces, and be done. Now my face, don't do that. You know, I already have a, saying pink, it's kind, you know, a very reddish complexion. So I would go cold water, that soap, and I was bright red for the rest of the day. So they called me monkey bum. These monkeys up there, right, with the red bum. That was my name, Piukup. But they called each other other names, you know. The cook who was slightly big, he was fat cook, Majingyapa. I had a classmate who had acne, he was called Acne, conveniently, right? One who was a little bit scary. No, I won't tell you this name. He's still offended, so if he ever listens to that, I don't want. But anyway, so we gave each other, and not everyone had a name, but I got that name, you know, monkey bum. I was so offended initially. But I knew, by that time I knew, if I showed I was offended, I get even more of it. So I just didn't say anything. Fortunately, this Western monk, who was a lot more interacting with the monks, I learned from his mistakes. Right? And you know when it stopped? It stopped when sometime during the debate, someone came up to me and asked me, what's your name? And I said, my name is Monkey Bum. And then they were like, oh, now it's no longer fun. So they never called me that again. But as it also happened one time, someone, a nun actually got angry with me. And it was I did something, I was not in any way skillful. I was just seeing things from my own perspective. So it's always, you know, you need two to tango. So I'm not making her responsible. It was both of us. But she called me Bango. Now, bango in Tibetan actually just means beggar. It's like saying jerk in English. Like bango, I mean, sometimes you use the word, oh, bango mambudu, means like there are a lot of beggars on the street, and that's not rude. But if you use it with a particular voice and direct it at someone, you know, a person who's not begging on the street, for instance, and yeah, so if you say bango, it sounds pretty rude, doesn't it? Bango, kyo means you, right? And it's like the non-honorific for you, bango, kyo, or something, right? Just off the top of my head, that's what I remember she said. And I was so offended. Oh my God, you know, she called me that. I knew it was so rude, and never anyone, I don't even remember someone calling me a jerk. So, and I translated it to jerk. So it was like, oh. And I went to my teacher and I cried. Oh, poor me. You know, I cried and I was like, she called me bango. And he was very sweet, very kind, you know. And he was like, oh, poor you. Oh, that's terrible. Come on. You know, like first he consoled me. And then he said, okay, now, make some tea, bango. And he called me bango for the next 2 weeks. And then I didn't care. I didn't care after that. Call me bango, call me jerk. It's just a word. He said it very kindly. Make some tea, bango. He didn't say it with the same force, bango, but still, you know, it was the word I was obsessing over. It was such a good lesson, being called monkey bum and being called bango. Those were such good lessons because I realized they're just words. If someone calls me anything, it doesn't make me that, right? It doesn't make me. So I'm such a slave to what words people use me. I mean, like, I'm allowing this person to take away my freedom. I mean, if I've really resented them, I should be even more not willing to take it on. Why do I take it on? It's just a word. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can do no harm. I mean, if I just need to meditate on that, well, you know, let's go for it. You see? So whatever words people use, in and of themselves, bango doesn't hold a negative meaning. There's nothing from the side of the, you know, none of these letters or jerk is the negativity in the J, in the E, in the R, in the K. No. Where's the negativity in the J, the E, the R, the K, right? Not in there. There's nothing there. And none of its parts, not in the whole. And you can't find it. It just comes from the mind. And since it comes from the mind, certain words we have to constantly change. As I said, like having mental problems. Especially in the 21st century, more and more people used to have a lot of physical problems. They were too busy to take care of their physical problems to even think of their mental state. Now we have the leisure of having less physical problems. Now we have all the time to obsess over our mind, and guess what? There are more mental problems. Besides the fact, of course, there's more pressure, the self is being emphasized a lot more, there's more sense of isolation and loneliness and all that because we separate ourselves so much. Loneliness, let me tell you, I felt lonely so many times because I had a class full of monks. I was the only woman in my class. There was a Japanese girl for some time. They actually founded the Japanese restaurant in McLeodganj. Yeah, they were the original founders of the Lungta. But then she pulled out and she joined the IBD. I think it was her. Her husband designed Nobulinka, I remember that. He used to come to our class as well. I think Akimi was part of Lungta. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. I thought she was part of that as well. But she definitely, yeah, I'm pretty sure she was part of that, finding it. But her husband definitely designed Nobulinka. But they used to come both to our class, and she came to the debate 2 or 3 times. But then she disappeared, basically, and she no longer, or only very rarely came to class. So I was really alone with my classmates. And they were best buddies. They were best buddies. They loved each other. They run around arm in arm. And even the Western monk, you know, I mean, they had no, yeah, he was sometimes, they sometimes made fun of him, but in a good-natured way, and he knew that. So he was very much part of the community, and I was always the odd one out. Yeah, poor me. Poor me. It was really painful. It was really, really painful. Like, I mean, I got used to it, right? But it was hard. We're not used to it being treated like that. It's like, but they didn't, it was nothing personal. It wasn't personal. I was a nun. It was not appropriate. If I was alone with them, they were very kind, but not in a group. In fact, there's still, next door to me, there's a huge monastery with monks, a lot of monks, Kitty Monastery. And there are some monks, when I meet them on the street and there's no one there, they're so kind. When there's anyone there, they ignore me. It's still kind of weird. What's so wrong with saying hello? I mean, it's not like you're breaking your vows and everyone thinks you're a degenerate. But they don't. You see them, I walk towards them. Before I realized, the first time I said hello, and they went like that. It was nothing personal. It's just not appropriate. But the point is, I stopped taking it personally. Okay? I stopped taking it personally. And when you generate love and compassion for all sentient beings, you no longer feel lonely. That's incredible. If you feel like you're connected to anyone, even though they don't feel connected to you, that's all you need. The funny thing is that when usually we only feel connected to others if they feel connected to us, right? We only feel connected to others but if you just feel connected to everyone without them feeling connected to you, loneliness is gone. That was so liberating again. It was so liberating again that I didn't need from their side anything. When I was able, and I'm not saying I can do that all the time, but sometimes you can, you trigger that, like just feeling that closeness towards others. It was no longer important whether they liked me or not. I became so much freer because that side I could control. So I didn't feel lonely. I could, in fact, when others got along really well, I could just force myself or get myself to rejoice in them getting along so well, even though I wasn't a part of it. So I just listened, I laughed at the jokes, so that was okay. They were entertaining, so I got entertained. But even though everyone ignored me, it was fine. It wasn't a problem because I first had to feel ignored for that to affect me. I had to have the thought, oh, why do they ignore me? Oh, poor me. But it wouldn't have been that much different if they hadn't. So really, we need to think. We need to, because we suffer so much. We suffer so much unnecessarily, right? So if we feel lonely, and I felt so lonely. Sometimes I felt like, where am I, right? Because I had no time to spend with Westerners. My studies were so demanding. It was done on purpose to have the Dharma all around you, I guess. So there was very little free time. We had but they were usually used for self-study. Very little vacations. And on the weekend, because I'm not a native Tibetan speaker, I had to brush up on my Tibetan because I could debate before I could speak Tibetan. I didn't learn Tibetan in the way people do because I had just decided I wanted to learn Tibetan. A new program started. They didn't have the rules that they have today, and I was able to join. And I could actually debate before I could talk to my classmates or even understand what was going on in class, because the teacher who took care of me, he was also the one who called me Banko. He's the one who went to the concentration camp, remember? It's the same person, Geshema. So an amazing teacher who's unfortunately no longer at the IBD. But actually, when I first became a nun, I realized at some point, it was really funny, I wanted to become Milarepa. I wanted to become this great practitioner. So it's a bit like, I was like someone who tried to get into university without going to kindergarten or even elementary school or high school. So I wanted to be this great meditator. I did the craziest stuff. I mean, you're going to laugh what I did. I was in this little hut. I had to be a meditator's hut. Okay, it was that. I had no bathroom. I had to go somewhere outside, so that was good. And then someone gave me a gas stove, like, you know, wow, a gas cylinder and a stove. I thought that was so amazing first, but then I realized, oh, but the real meditator on the mountains, they use kerosene stoves. Clever as I am, gave away that gas and bought a kerosene stove. Paid for it. This terrible thing that's potentially dangerous. And every morning I woke up with black soot in my nostrils because, you know, you pump away, right? Then you have the fire. It goes, you boil your thing, but it develops a lot of soot. And, you know, and you cook and you cook and you cook and you breathe it in. And the next morning I'm like, why do I have black nostrils? Right? Because I was now a real meditator. Because I had a kerosene stove now. And then I heard the meditators get up at 3 in the morning. All right, I did that. 3 in the morning. That was the middle of the night. For me, it was like, this is no early morning. This is the middle of the night. So I got up at 3. I sit there, meditate. But what to meditate on? So I took a book. Okay, meditate. Well, I don't understand. Think. By 4, I was in bed again. Right? I couldn't make it an hour and I went to sleep. So for a few times I would wake up at 3, be in bed again, and then sleep really long. And then I tried prostrations, but I hated getting sweaty. I'm much better now. But initially, when I first came here, every time I got sweaty, I had a shower. So I was busy the whole day. Now I can bear being sweaty, but I didn't. I wasn't used to this humidity. And then doing prostrations, I hated it just because I got sweaty. I mean, I was like, oh gosh. And then I thought, I don't know the Dharma. I don't know what to meditate on. I don't want to get out at 3. I hate kerosene stoves. I have to learn Tibetan. So I packed my bag from my cool meditation hut and moved down into McLeod. You know, it's like the other way around usually. You're McLeod, you do your study, and then you move up to the, yeah, right. I did it exactly the other way around. I mean, my story is like a lesson for how not to do it. You want to know what mistakes to avoid? Listen to my story. Anyway, so then I came down to McLeod. I found a place in the Nunnery where, you know, no toilet and, you know, one tap. Actually, the shower, you would take water from the tap. Really love that. Water from the tap and warm it with gas. Now I had a gas stove again. Then take it to the toilet, which had like a separation, and have a bath. So you basically take a bath in the toilet. But that worked. Okay. Anyway, so then I wanted to learn Tibetan. So I went to another nunnery where I knew a nun who I asked her to teach me Tibetan because there was nothing really to learn Tibetan. So I went to her and she said, well, go to the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics. There's a great teacher. His name is Geshema Kelsang Wangmo. He can teach you. So, okay, I went there one day, knocked on someone's door. Happened to be Geshe Dorje Damdu, by the way. He doesn't remember that, but he was also an IBD student. So he studied there and then became, as it's traditional, you then go down south, you take the exams and become a Geshe. That's how it used to be and still is for many monks. Anyway, so Geshe Dorje Damdu, he was in one of those rooms. I still remember where he was. Those rooms are still there. They're still there, that's right. And so I knocked at his door and I said, can you tell me where Gengyatsulā lives? And he said, yes, I'll show you. He took me to his room. And I said, hello, Genla. And Genla was sitting on a low bed and put me on a high chair. And I said, can you teach me Tibetan? He said, he thought about it. And he said, yeah, I can do that. But the best way to learn Tibetan is to learn how to debate. I'll teach you how to debate. And I was like, I have no idea what debate is, but whatever. As long as I learn Tibetan, you know, might as well.
How old are you, sorry?
Pardon?
How old are you at this stage?
I was around 20, 20, 21, yeah, I was quite young. So 21, 22, yeah, around that age. And so he taught me. My first lesson was on that high chair, him sitting on a low bed, very appropriate. And he taught me. He taught me how to debate, right? I had no idea. I was all in Tibetan. I didn't know Tibetan, you know. But he knew some English, so he could translate these words. And so I had my first lesson. And we went for a few months like that. And eventually I came down from that chair, sat on the floor. And I heard there was a new program starting, and I joined that program. I was allowed to join it. I could debate a little bit, really just a little bit. My classmates caught up with me so quickly because the language barrier was still there. And people still ask me sometimes now, is it best to learn Tibetan through debate? I don't think nowadays, with so many different ways of teaching Tibetan, I don't think that's any longer true. It is very good to become fast, right, to speak Tibetan quickly, but it's not necessarily. I know quite a few Westerners who now learn Tibetan and they try to speak really fast and you can't understand them. So I keep telling them, just talking fast is not a solution. First, try to speak clearly. So even, especially in debate, you have to be understandable. And although your classmates may understand you at some point, if you want to be understood by more people, it's better to be sure, right? So it's no longer really the case that the best way to learn Tibetan is through debate, because it's different vocabulary in the first place. Therefore, I had to still learn the other Tibetan. But the point is, I did it all the wrong way around. But I felt I didn't have enough time. I didn't want to wait another 3 years, because at that time they only accepted people every 3 years, and that would have been really long. I didn't want that. Anyway, the point is I joined the IBD, and it was just painful for a really long time. And again, when did I overcome that sense of loneliness? When I was really able, those moments when I could just have a sense everyone is so close to me. Everyone is just a stranger, or someone close to me used to be a stranger. When I had learned all these things and they sunk in a little bit, or when I just generate, I mean, these techniques, they all work. They're all made to work. And I'm not saying I always have that sense of closeness, not at all. But when I feel myself feeling lonely, all I need to do is apply that, and then it's gone again, right? So again, I wasn't dependent on them treating me a certain way. I can only emphasize that right now we're so dependent on other people showing us a certain closeness or acting towards us in a certain way, and only then we feel close to them, right? Our mind reciprocates, basically. But that's the problem here, because I'm so dependent on others. I'm dependent on them liking me to be happy. Who wants that dependence? If I generate without being reciprocation, or like reciprocating or replying basically to how they react to me, if I have it from my side, first of all, they're more likely to feel drawn towards me if it's sincere. And secondly, I feel good right then and there. Right? Many of the great meditators, even up here on the mountains, people forget about them. People don't know about them, right? So they actually, even if they were to die, you know, like in the West, there's always this fear of dying alone, but they don't, it's okay. If I die alone, I die alone. I love all sentient beings. They're so close to me. They're close to my heart. Their well-being is most important. So there's no worry about being alone and dying alone. My mom is always like, oh, I'm so alone. My sister's next door. She goes there. I mean, she still has to go, because my sister doesn't really like to come to my mom's home, because she thinks my mom messed her up, and her furniture reminds her of that. It's just her thing, right? So my mom has to go to her living space, and she can do that. And my sister, you know, she's not always attentive, but she often is, and she offers her something, and she's there with the kids. Or she has so many people she knows. But every now and then she's in her home and she's like, I'm so lonely, and there's no one there. And I'm like, but you got this person on that side, you got your friend down the road, Gabi, and you got this other friend, you call her up, you got me. Loneliness is in your mind. And she's like, okay, all right. And then she made more of an effort to reach out, and then she's like, I've got no time on my hand, no time for myself. I am meeting all these people. And like, sorry, are you lonely? No, not that. Now I have a new problem. And I'm like, this is, now it's the opposite of what, it's never going to be right. And she's like, yeah, right, okay. So she accepts that. But the point is, it's just a mental state. That's the beauty. It's just a mental state. Like I'm saying, the meditators up on the mountains, people forget about them at some point. They become older and older. They've been up there for 30 years. Don't come down one day. Of course they will, and they'll teach and share with what they've learned. But for the time being, they need that time to themselves to develop their mind in a very intense way, right? And that's appropriate for some. It's less appropriate for others. It's not an absolute necessity. It's just a tool. But the point I'm trying to make before you think, oh, are they actually benefiting sentient beings? Yes, they are. But for the time being, they're up there to train their mind. And do they feel lonely? No. They feel closer to every living being than someone who lives in the center of the biggest city in the world. Because it's a matter of attitude. That is so important. These are the basics. We can all generate that. And we've done it in our meditation, right? It's sometimes harder, sometimes less hard. But okay, they may have heard us, they may have done things. I've done that to others as well. They maybe did it unknowingly. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, especially with children, unfortunately, parents still love their children the same way. But children are a little different. They may, my mom had this saying. They used to say, my Israeli friends used to say she was a Polish mother. Polish mothers, they're so cute. When they showed me what Polish mothers are like, I'm like, they're like my mother. Something like, okay, you don't call me. Next time I may be dead. And then you lose your mother. I may be gone. My mother would say these things just like that. She would be like saying, she had this saying, when they were little, they kick you in the belly. When they're in the womb. When they're small, they kick you in the belly. When they're big, they kick you in the heart. Oh, Indian mothers are like that? Oh, okay. Break your mother's heart. Okay, go ahead, my dear. Yes, all the pain. She loves to talk about pregnancies and when I give birth. Oh my God, how long? It's like, I've actually noticed that. I remember watching a movie and there was a mother that was just like my own. So interesting. Yeah. So like my mom likes to do that. But of course, there's something to it. I mean, yeah, of course we could be more caring. We could be more... Anyway, the whole point is, so children, they definitely don't love they love their parents, yes, but they don't want to have them so close as we usually want as parents with our children. My mom would want me to move in with her. I mean, I do live there when I'm in Germany, but like, come back to Germany, we can live together. Do I really want to live next door? That's fine. And it's her house, her rules. I want to have my own rules. But never mind. That's not the point. But I can tell she'd be the happiest if we be joined at the hip. Right? So this is just the situations as mothers oftentimes. Yeah, and there's some terrible situations. They're terrible with children really doing terrible things to their parents. But then if that happens to you, it's up to you to let go and still have that love for them. It's up to you. That's the thing. It's a decision. It's a conscious decision. Like I said, with stress. Whether we're stressed or not, it's an attitude. It's a thing of attitude. Whether I'm sad or not, it's a matter of attitude. This is the freedom. It's the freedom I have in my mind. And I can learn to have a positive attitude. I can totally do that. And I see Tibetans, whatever the problem is, they always find a way to look at it in a positive light. We just missed the train. Okay, that's sad, but there's a really good chai place. Now we can have some tea there. Something like to that effect. I don't know what that, but they always look at the bright side of things. There's a song, always look at the bright side. That's really clever. Always look at the bright side in life, right? Isn't that Jungle Book or something? Like, isn't that Mowgli? No, never mind. Always look at the bright side in life. Oh, it's the Monty Python. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, Monty Python. But it's so true. Nothing is in and of itself bad. In and of itself. And this is where emptiness comes in. Understanding emptiness, understanding that from the side of the situation, from the side of the hurtful words, from the side of it's neither positive nor negative. The person may have the motivation to harm us, but even a motivation to harm us is neither positive or negative in and of itself. It's only in relation to, first of all, the karmic effects that person will have. Someone will talk to them like that. Or how I perceive it. If I allow myself to be hurt. If I see it as an opportunity to practice patience, right? I want to practice patience. So you know how the great Dipankara Atisha, when he went to Tibet, the story goes that Tibetans were quite unruly then. The Dharma hadn't really taken hold. But anyway, even nowadays, you know, Tibetans are not a lot about thank you, how are you, and so forth. They now took it on. But I remember mobile phones was the funniest thing with my classmates. You know, we all had mobile phones for the first time. And they don't really say goodbye. So you're like, hey, do you know where there's class today? Not sure. Gone. And I'm like, goodbye? They never said goodbye. Now they say, los, okay. It kind of like just, they don't really have a goodbye. So they say something like, okay. And then they put down the phone. But initially, they just put down the phone. You're like, hello? Right? It just wasn't done. So they have adjusted a little bit. But yes, it was really unusual. So this please, thank you, hello. So they can be super polite, but only if there's a distance. So usually when it's a teacher and there's a kind of a respectful distance, okay. But if it's a good friend, you do away with all this. Whereas in the West, in Europe, you're like, please, thank you, would you, oh, could you, please, could you, right? So Tibetans even nowadays still may sometimes seem rude, but it's not rudeness, it's just a sign of closeness. I used to call my nun's friend Chola, which is like an honorific, kind of saying venerable. And they were like, don't call me that, call me by my name. That creates a distance. So we still, in English, we should still use the honorific, even if we're close to them. But in Tibetans, they're like, no, don't call me venerable, don't call me Chola, call me by my name. That we don't have that relationship. I'm not your teacher. Yeah. So we need to understand the cultural kind of differences. But anyway, when Atisha went to Tibet for the first time, Tibetan minds weren't as subdued as they're now, and they were probably even, you know, rougher than they can sometimes come across now. Pretty rough, or what would maybe Indians being, well, very, very, I don't want to use the word civilized. I don't want to say Tibetans weren't civilized, but like this high culture. The cradle of civilization, I think, is India is seen as the cradle of civilization. So there were a lot of ways of behaving with each other, and probably quite refined. I can't say. Probably more so than today, I'm not sure. But the story goes that Atisha had a cook, I think it was, and he was so difficult. A tea boy. Oh, it was a tea boy. I thought it was a tea boy, and I thought, what kind of tea boy would you employ? I never heard of a tea boy employing a tea boy. Okay, so it wasn't the cook, it was the tea boy. And he was so rude. He was so rude to Atisha and to everyone. And so when Atisha planned to go to Tibet, he said, I have to take that tea boy with me. And his staff, his attendants said, don't take him with you. He's so difficult. And he was like, of course, because then how am I going to practice patience? I want that guy next to me. I want him close to me. Everyone else is so polite and sweet to me. How am I going to have an opportunity to practice patience? And then once he arrived in Tibet, he said, well, after all, I didn't need the tea boy. I've got the Tibetans. No. But this is, of course, this is very different. This is very different if a Tibetan tells the story. So I don't want to say the Tibetans were rude or something, but usually the Tibetans tell the story. I don't even know it's true, saying of themselves they were rude then. I don't know whether they really were. But I'm sure the Dharma has definitely, subdued them as the Dharma subdues everyone. But the point is with this tea boy. So, do you have your own personal tea boy? Any rude person you keep close? Should we hire someone? Maybe in the future, when everyone practices the Dharma, you have rude people on hire. Wouldn't that be funny? If one day everyone practices the Dharma and you're really running out of rude people to give you the opportunity to practice patience, and so you can hire them online. Or maybe they have, by that time, AI is so advanced, you can get a robot that you can kind of buy that is so rude to you all day long, giving you the opportunity to practice patience.
Or get a parrot.
Pardon?
A parrot.
No, but the parrot will just do what you do, and if you're practicing kindness, they're going to repeat like, all sentient beings, may you be well. No, I don't want that parrot, right? I want a really rude parrot. So all I'm saying is like, right now, maybe we're lucky we have those difficult people around us. Maybe we're lucky. So the thing is, it's just a matter of attitude. Am I lucky to have that person around, or do I feel miserable? Well, it's in your own hand, right? You can choose it, you can see it as a challenge, or you can see it as something that makes my life miserable. It's all a matter of, so there's so much freedom, it's all here. That's why it doesn't matter who it is out there. You have to discover this freedom, right? Discover this freedom, because we unnecessarily suffer. It's your choice. It's your choice, but the problem is it's very unlikely to change the other person. Either you have to seek a distance, and you may have to do that, find a good solution like a healthy distance. But you could also take it in small portions, right? Keep a distance, because usually it's difficult, but then every now and then spend some time with them. See it as an opportunity to practice patience, and once they're gone, okay, I've done that one. What's next, right? Take it in pieces it's everything becomes your practice. Everything becomes your practice. So it's not like you have to go to a Dharma center, and usually in the Dharma center we experience nirvana. A monastery or nunnery, nirvana. Forget it. We have to let go of that idea. Dharma centers can be messier than other places. Because guess what? When we start walking with our own negativities, they may pop up stronger. Stuff comes up. Or people try so hard to be bodhisattvas, they suppress their self-centeredness, and it comes out much stronger than before. Right? Give people some credit if there's a lot of conflict in Dharma centers. It's usually because they really tried to work with their own mind. And even if that's not the case, and the Dharma center is harmonious, I'm pretty sure a Buddha would manifest as a difficult person in there to help people to, because you still need, if it's too harmonious, that is like going to a gym and having weights that weigh 10 grams. I'm going to a gym. Put my back. Right? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's like going to a Dharma center where everything is smooth running, is smooth, no one to press your buttons. That's like going to a gym where the heaviest weight is 10 grams. No, you go to a Dharma center, you want conflict. You want trouble. You want difficult people. You have all these images to inspire you, to remind you, and then some difficult people, right? That's the ideal. I'm saying it this way, but I'm just like you guys are, right? I'm just like you guys are. But we have to remind ourselves again and again and again. These Dharma centers, the messier they are, the better they are. But unfortunately, usually we turn around and run and never look back. That's the problem. That's the problem. This is the most rewarding. Being in a difficult Dharma center, right? And working for the Dharma. There couldn't be anything easier. And look at some of the great monasteries. We don't know how difficult it is to be in charge of someone, because they never complain and they do their jobs. It's amazing. I mean, look at the big monasteries in the south. Some of these monks are so unruly. I mean, they're new monks, they're young boys, they are hormones. They are walking hormones. Think, what age are they? They come to be monks as teenagers, sometimes even younger. But sooner or later, there are hormones very much at play. And you can't suppress them. You have to learn how to deal with them, but that takes time. And the first thing is there's just going to be these running hormones, and they're going to do naughty things, and they're going to try and break the rules, and they're going to try and meet a girl. I mean, it could happen. It's not like, it's not all peaceful and wonderful. But people keep it in the monastery. They keep it in there, and they're going to talk about it and spread it out and talk to everyone about it. It's a personal matter. They don't want people to lose faith because there's such incredible monks in there. The ones who've been able to deal with it, who've taken the Dharma to heart, who live what they've learned. First they learn about it, and then they learn to live what they've learned. Yeah? But don't think it's all perfect. And actually, I remember someone once said, who actually, a Western monk who came from, who was at Sarah, he said that he thought in the monasteries, wisdom is prevalent, but compassion isn't. And I couldn't disagree more. I think that is so not true. I just totally disagree. And I'm quite verbal about it, because other people say that now. No. But what we think is compassion, we misunderstand. We think compassion is, you want something, poor thing, you get it. See what I'm saying? So you go to the abbot and you ask them, I don't know, for something like, oh, everyone has to share rooms. For instance, I give you some extreme example. I'm just saying, everyone wants, but I need my own room, or I need some special treatment, or I need something. We as Westerners, unfortunately, I have to say, we want, sometimes, I was raised with like many mattresses and no pee underneath them. So any kind of apple in my mattress is going to kill me. So I better get the luxury I have in the West, right? Yes, it's very hard for us living in certain conditions, and I get that. Anyway, the point is sometimes it's just not possible. They oftentimes can be very accommodating. They do try until we're used to living a little simpler, right? They're very kind and but sometimes it just doesn't work. And when they say no, suck it up, that seems like they're not compassionate. But the thing is, compassion doesn't always mean you get what you want, and it cannot come across as rude. Sometimes they're just like, I got parents. They want to teach us to be tougher. And instead of saying, oh, poor you don't like to do your chores, do your chores, that's life. And in that moment, it may be more beneficial to really, right? I mean, usually parents know their children well enough. When do I need to talk roughly to them? When they decide one day, I'm not going to go to school. I had enough. I can now find a job, right? I had that time. I was like, no, I'm done with school. Now I could, and my parents were like, no way, right? No way. You're not going to, no. So they were like, you're going to school. I had these days when I was like, I'm not going to go. It's boring. I have to get up early, and the bus ride is tiring. I don't want to do it. They weren't like, oh, poor you, don't go to school. You don't like it. You want to be happy, right? That would have been short-term happiness. Short-term happiness. Yes, I would have slept every day until 10, but it would have just been short-term happiness. It's 10? Okay, just a sec. Short-term happiness. Long-term would be to go to school, to get the degree, to get my A-levels or whatever you want to call them, finish high school, to then be able and do, go to university. That was actually the goal. And I'm so grateful that my parents made me go, but it wasn't through gentleness. Please, little precious daughter, please go. I wouldn't have listened. They made me go. They forced me. And it was good for me, right? So did I think my parents were compassionate? No, I hated them, right? They're just so square. So it didn't seem compassionate. There was rough. They were rough means. And also some of my teachers, sometimes they were scolding me, they were rough. But I know now that it was for the long term. It wasn't like, you see, it's very important when you focus on sentient beings' well-being. First of all, if you live in a society, they focus on the benefit of as many people as possible. So I feel they should have focused on only my benefit. Who cares about the rest? That's how it feels. So to me, a compassionate person is someone who does everything what I get for my benefit. But if it's actually not for my benefit, but it benefits a lot of people in general, that is actually a truly compassionate action. Wouldn't you agree, logically? It may seem harsh in my case, but if it benefits the monastery, because if I want something extra, if everyone wants something extra, the monastery can't accommodate that. So I feel quite embarrassed sometimes. I got extra when I was at the IBD because I was new then, and they thought, okay, I have to accommodate that and so forth. And my classmates they expressed that later, and they said like, well, why would you get? And I was like, yeah. Okay, at the beginning I didn't know enough Tibetan. I needed a teacher. But then at some point that was done. I was done. I knew Tibetan well enough. And I got it, that I didn't need to get extra, right? And sometimes people from Taiwan, there was some in Taiwan, they got extra because for whatever reasons. And I sometimes felt, oh, that's not fair. They got certain treatments that I didn't get. And then I thought, well, but I also got something and they didn't. So why am I complaining now? I had to really get to that point where, why is it just, And so also, the more people, the better. So you always look at the majority, and short-term versus long-term, it's always long-term. So compassion has to be combined with wisdom. Compassion mustn't be misunderstood, and we'll go more into that. It is the wish for others to be free from suffering, but as many people as possible, as many living beings as possible, and that suffering is to avoid long-term suffering, and not short-term suffering at the expense of long-term suffering, at the expense of long-term happiness. Very important. And that's why many of the monasteries are governed on that principle. And they're not always going to be gentle with us, because then we're going to argue back and forth and they waste a lot of time. No, you want to stay, you do it, otherwise you're free to go. That seems harsh. But to have an argument, a gentle argument with they never get any work done. Am I making sense? So this is compassion in action, but it's not necessarily gentle, and it's not necessarily getting what we want, ourselves getting what we want at the expense of everyone else, ourselves getting what we want right now at the expense of long-term happiness, and it's not always communicated in a way so that I may go, but please, no argument here, take it or leave. That's compassion, but conjoined with wisdom. Very important. I think we really need to understand that. And when a lama is harsh, look, is it for my long-term benefit? Does it benefit as many people as possible? And maybe I'm excluded. That's fine, because I'm not the center of the universe. It's difficult to realize, But that's true. You see, it's just a matter of attitude, however painful that is. It's painful just as it's painful to lift 10 kilo because we're not used to it. It's painful to, I don't know, do some crazy yoga movement because my body's not used to it. But guess what? I can get used to it. There's nothing I cannot get used to. If some incredible yoga teacher can do it and he teaches and I learn effectively and they teach me and I do what they tell me, I can be just like that. And the same is true for our mind. Whatever seems painful and impossible right now, you can get used to it as so many other beings in the past have. You can. You just need to hang in there and do the training. Right? Really, it works. You see, look at like someone like His Holiness. He was once just like us. Right? And I'm not saying I changed drastically, but I did change. And these are changes that brought so much more happiness to my life. Boy, all the suffering, the unnecessary suffering I had just 10, 20 years ago. So it was really worth it. All right, anyway, let's have some tea. All right.